Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the new movie, Hypnotic. Hypnotic is directed by Robert Rodriguez, who has done movies like The OG Spy Kids, Alita Battle Angel, and Machete. I like a good mystery movie, especially with Ben Affleck as the lead actor, so I thought I'd go check this one out. The synopsis is as follows. Determined to find his missing daughter, Detective Danny Rourke finds himself spiraling down a rabbit hole while investigating a series of reality-bending crimes. Aided by Diana Cruz, a gifted psychic, Rourke simultaneously pursues and is pursued by a lethal specter, the one man he believes holds the key to finding the girl. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. When the movie opens, Detective Rourke finds himself in a therapy session where he's talking about reliving the experience of when his daughter was kidnapped in front of him. He walks out of this session, joins his partner, and then proceeds to stake out a bank that they think is going to get robbed. They find this strange person who seems to go up to people, say a few words, and then they start doing really weird things. You quickly find out that this man is one of the few people that can basically hack into people's brains using hypnotic words and compel them to do exactly what he wants them to do. This opens a whole new world to Detective Rourke as he tries to find out what this has to do with his daughter and why his family is involved. To be completely honest with you, in my opinion, the plot behind this movie is actually insanely good. It's like some kind of love child between Inception and The Adjustment Bureau, and those movies are right up my alley, so I was super stoked at what I thought this movie would be. And while it started kind of strong, it definitely faltered. I think one of the biggest issues that made this movie fall on its face was the fact that it cut its runtime super short. And storytelling is so important to this movie because it is more of an in-depth topic that requires a little bit of thinking. For example, there's a lot of twists and turns in this movie, but they all happen one right after the other instead of spacing them out and making a quality film. And I honestly think this movie could have added a half an hour at least to give itself better pacing because it was horrendous. So for me, plot gets a 50-50. 2 is family friendliness. Hypnotic is rated R, and there's a mild to moderate bit of profanity throughout. There's quite a few action sequences involving blood and gore. You see a lot of people get shot on screen close up, and there's a couple pretty nasty deaths involving a few suicides. But this movie is definitely not family friendly, so family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. There are a few names that I recognized in this movie. Obviously Ben Affleck, Alice Braga, and William Fichtner. That being said, none of the performances here are anything to write home about. It really felt like they were just reading lines off of a script, and it felt pretty uninspired. And the script itself was okay, but I couldn't tell if it was bad because it was written that way or if it was bad because of the runtime. Like I mentioned, there's some twists and turns, but they tell you a lot of things or exposition dump on you, and so much of it happens in a fast-paced manner that the storytelling and the script feel pretty forced at times. And it's a bummer because if this movie was fleshed out a little bit more, it really could have been something. So for me, acting and script get a 50-50. 4 is character development. This movie has decent character progression, but no character development. Some of that has to do with certain things that happen in the movie, and a lot of it has to do with the plot. And in some ways, this movie kind of felt like the movie Paycheck, but even that movie found a way to develop his characters. You don't feel like you know or care about any of these characters by the end of the film, which if you did would have made it such a better movie because the ending is actually pretty good. So for me, character development gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. The action sequences in this movie are meh. The CGI is pretty poor in some situations, and some of the blood and gore is pretty cheesy as well. They had a pretty unique perspective of when someone was trying to use the hypnotic ability, and while it was a niche, I think it could have worked for this movie if it was longer. But because it wasn't, it was something that we only saw a couple times in the film, and it made it just seem really cheese. So for me, visuals and CGI get a thumbs down. And 6 is rewatchability. Hypnotic is an hour and a half long, but this movie hit the sweet spot of having such a good idea behind it that it could have been longer, but feeling way too long because they tried to pack way too much into an hour and a half and it ended up feeling really B-rated. There is a brilliant idea here, and I really wish that Rodriguez would have given it what it needed to make it a good story. Even with a good idea, the rest of this movie is pretty unbearable to watch. So for me, rewatchability gets a thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give Hypnotic a 4 out of 10. This movie had a great idea behind it, but its script was lacking. It had uninspired acting performances. It had absolutely no character development, and it cut itself way too short with its runtime, and that greatly impacted the storytelling, the twists and turns, and the overall outcome of the movie. This movie had so much potential, and I truly think that a director like Christopher Nolan or someone could make this movie absolute money. but who knows if that'll ever happen. So with all that in mind, unfortunately Hypnotic is not a movie that's worth going to see in theaters, but if the concept interests you, I'd recommend checking it out when it comes out on streaming platforms. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Hypnotic, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.